and review this recording. We had a lot going on this last week. So I'm not sure if St. Peter is on yet. Carlin, are you on yet?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, I just want to welcome Carlin to the Benedictine family.
No,
Carlin,
hang on. I thought you said hold on.
oh, no, I'm waiting for Carlin.
Sorry.
Not sure if she's on yet. We'll wait another minute. I wonder if she has the meeting invite. Let me forward. Carlin is our new ALDON down in St. Peter. Her first day at the facility with her nurse being off and Jane being off, who's the housing director, the health department walked in. So what a way for her to start her position. And oh, Ben's on. Thank you, Ben, for being on, because we have a lot to talk about. But anyway, so they came in. She did an excellent job. Penny was able to be there. And so I thought they did very, very well for the survey. I thought the tags were very minimal. So I was very pleased with the survey in general, but just some things I want to kind of go over, and I'm hoping that St. Peter will join us so they can kind of talk about their experience during the week. They were there 3 days, walked in on a Monday and left Wednesday late afternoon. So they did a great job. So I'll just kind of walk through the surveys. I know Ben is on because when we get to a certain area, then he's gonna join us too for some conversation. But the first tag, the 0480, was a minimum requirement for the food code related to dishwasher temps. So that was in culinary. I reached out to Brett and he did verify that we have to take temps with the meals during each meal 3 times a day. And then the quat, every time you fill a bucket or sink, you're supposed to be manually measuring. So
well, and this is Brett, just as a clarification
great.
too.
I'm glad you're on.
If you are manually measuring the quat that goes in the water, it has to be done every single time. Otherwise, if you're using a dispenser that automatically is supposed to titrate it correctly, then you only have to do it daily out of that dispenser. You don't have to do it every single time you fill a bucket or a sink.
Right, and I did put that clarification here. Otherwise, daily out of each dispenser. Thank you for that. Is there anything else in the culinary, Brett, that you heard or?
Not from St. Peter, as also the clarification for the dishwasher, and I'm not familiar enough with the enterprise as a whole, but some dish machines aren't temperature requirements if they are a chemical sanitizer, and then you have to check that 3 times daily too. So I know that most of the facilities, or all the facilities I've been to, they're all temperature machines, which is preferable, but some senior living places do have the chemical sanitizing machines. So just make sure you know which machines you have and make sure things are documented, because the machine, I talked with Sandy, the interim food service director down there, the machine did reach temperature. They just weren't recording it correctly, or ever for that matter, from my understanding.
Okay, perfect. So that's
great. Out of your closet. No, you didn't.
She would never know it. She's got a red pair of tennis.
St. Peter, you're not muted, but
I'm
working on it.
well, actually, Carlin.
No.
Yes.
Since you joined us, and maybe you can kind of tell us how it was for your first day on duty and the survey team walking in, and how that worked for you. You're still here, so.
I'm still here. I came back though. So yeah, I was surprised. I did get a call, a warning call, and So they came in the morning and I just explained to them that I was new and I didn't know too much, but I would try to get as much information as I could to them. And people came and helped. So they were really very, you guys, I'm on the phone, the thing. So yeah, and they were really pretty easy as far as surveyors go that I've met in my career. So I felt okay about it, actually. It wasn't really super scary or stressful. So I thought it was okay.
Great. And we were just talking about your survey. It went, you know, for the tags you got, I thought it was very good. So compared to some I've been seeing, so.
Oh, yeah, good. Yeah, well, Penny and you guys were really helpful, and you, Linda. So we wouldn't have done that good.
Well, thank you for living through that, and thank you for getting on the call today. Any questions that anyone has for Lynn?
I don't know if this is pertinent, but so we had a person that had a fall yesterday and she had an injury to her knee. So I'm wondering if that, and she went to the hospital. So is that something that I need to do as a MARC report?
I can touch base with you after.
Okay.
Yep, sure can. The next area of our tags were in EBS. So it was inadequate training or clear process for resident action in an emergency. And we just wanted to go through the emergency plans again. We have templates on eSource. But just to review the regulations, that the employees of the assisted living facilities shall receive training on fire safety and evacuation plans upon hiring, and at least twice per year thereafter. I do know that Penny is talking with Kathleen Murray, seeing if like we could do a video or some kind of educare to meet that requirement, so stay tuned, more to come on that. And then the fire safety and evacuation plan shall be readily available at all times within the facility. Residents who are capable of assisting in their own evacuation shall be trained on the proper actions to take in the event of a fire, to include movement, evacuation, or relocation. The training shall be made available to residents at least once per year. And then evacuation drills are required for employees twice per year per shift, with at least one evacuation drill every other month. Evacuation of the residents is not required. The fire alarm system activation is not required to initiate the evacuation drill. So just reviewing that, monthly you are doing a fire drill every, on each shift. So once a month, day shift, the next month, evening, the next month, nights, however you want to do your facility, but make sure you're meeting these requirements and the documentation that goes along with it. I think that's the biggest piece missing in our facilities, is that we're not documenting it. I do see Jane on, maybe she wants to talk a little bit more about what was missing out of her emergency plan that they felt we could do a better job on. If you're on, Jane. I think she's on. You're muted if you're. Oh. Lisa has a question. The fire drills are to take place once a month as opposed to every 6 months. So I think there's a lot of confusion in that. Evacuation drills are twice per year per shift, with at least one evacuation drill every other month. So we don't have to take them out of the building for the residents. But you do have to do the drills every shift, and they have to be done twice for each shift, right? It kind of gets confusing. But so what we suggest is that once a month you do day shift, the next month do evenings, the next month do nights. So that every month you're doing one of your fire alarm drills. Did I clarify that enough? Or do you guys want to? Okay, and then there was another issue with some broken fixtures on doors and some ceiling tiles for the environmental, so they'll be working on that. In the administration area and human resources, we just had the assisted living director. The LALD was not listed as a director of record on the belt, so just make sure that we're always making sure you guys did the whole process through the belts area. Make sure you're on there. It might be a good time to get on and just check that everything is adequate for your LALD. 0470 was the minimum requirements to ensure that staffing schedule is posted as required. So that's your daily staffing that needs to be posted for our residents to see in a common area. If you are the only person that is posting your staffing, make sure you have a backup for when you're not there and that somebody is doing it on weekends if there's no management team doing that. They're not going to excuse anybody for survey tags because somebody was on vacation or that person didn't work. So have a backup to your backup. It has to be posted every day. And it has to be in a common place. So it cannot be in an office where somebody can't see it. Also, we have run into that a few times when we're kind of reviewing communities. I'm going to come back to the emergency relocation because I feel like that's going to be the biggest topic today. And I just want to make sure we have enough time for everything else. And so we're just going to, talk about nursing a little bit. So again, employee records, we see this every time we're auditing. And that's a 0650 employee records, and we are not doing our annual performance reviews. So make sure you're pulling your employee records. You should do an audit of a couple every month as the nurse or HR. Make sure your supervisory visits are in there. They have to be done within 30 days of starting on the floor. And then annually, make sure your background studies are there. We got a tag 1290. Failed to ensure a background study was submitted and received with the AL license for 1 out of the 2 staff that they did look at. And then 1760 is documentation of administration of meds. They failed to ensure the insulin administration via pre-filled pen was according to the manufacturer instructions. So again, nursing staff, we are forgetting to put the details into the orders for priming those pens, wiping them off with the alcohol wipe, putting on the cap, priming it to 2, wasting, and then drawing up the ordered amount of insulin to inject. So make sure those details are in your orders. This is the 3rd facility now that has gotten the tag. So just go through your orders and make sure they're detailed. Making sure we don't have 1 or 2 drops. If your aides are giving medications, they can't make those decisions. So make sure your orders are very clear and concise. And then 1890, prescription drugs, failed to ensure the meds were properly labeled for 1 of the 4 residents, and failed to label time-sensitive medication with date open for 1 or 2 residents. So again, that medication check every week by the nurses is so important So we're catching these things before our surveys. So an eye drop that did not have a label on it because it was too small and the bag was labeled, the eye drop was not in that bag. Those are the things you're looking for. And then not dating things that are open. So when you're doing your med checks weekly, those licensed nurses, they're making sure all that is completed before they leave that room. So if an eye drop isn't dated, make sure that date gets on. Just really important because these are just tags that we can really not have. So, and then 1940 was the individualized treatment and therapy management plan, failed to develop and implement the plan to include all the required content. And so the therapy and treatment plans are pretty much filled out for you on the end of your service plan. But what our treatment plan states is that the individual personalized details are in the orders. So we're going back to the orders again. And so if you have a treatment or some kind of delegated task that you are putting the details into that order or service plan task so that it's very detailed so the aides know exactly what they are to do. And if they don't do it, who they're supposed to report to, and if there's any side effects they're looking for, that they know that they have to report them. Those are the details that are missing in our service plans and our orders. And then preliminary, they did talk about our annual orders not being completed for the residents. So every year it is a regulation that all orders, if we're managing meds, have to be signed yearly. So make sure that you have that on your orders so that it pops up for the nurse as a reminder once a year to send those orders out for signature. And that's an easy one that we kind of forget about. So I would do a little audit on your orders. It is in our AL admission order set, so it's easy to someone asked a question, what are examples of treatments or therapy? So there's a great statement in the evaluation also, Hodan, about what is a delegated task when you are actually clicking on it, and it will bring up all the different kinds of tasks that they are. But yes, AccuChecks is a treatment. It's a delegated task. Therapy could be any kind of range of motion exercise, splint application. Treatments could be simple wound cares, compression stockings if it's a doctor's order, anything about that again. And the insulin tag, someone asked if I could repeat that. The insulin that was that the order did not have the details of priming the insulin pen to 2 units and wasting and wiping off the top. So I want to go back a little bit. And this isn't a new requirement, but it is something we haven't really given a lot of attention to since our assisted living requirements came through. So under administration, we did get a tag 01060 for emergency relocation. And they said that we failed to provide written notice with required content for an emergency and to notify the ombudsman of the emergency relocation for 1 resident. So we did reach out to Leading Age because what they were saying was, and correct me if I'm wrong, Carlin or Jane, that we sent a resident to the emergency room if after 4 days, which they have not clarified yet what 4 days means. So is it 4 overnights, 24 hours times 4, or 4 business days? So they're still working on that part. But after 4 days, we are supposed to send the ombudsman notification with a certain cover letter about this emergency relocation. So Penny and Ben did reach out to Leading Age. And I don't know if you want to talk about that, Ben, now.
Sure. With the one caveat that I was kind of only on the back end with the leading edge discussion, so I don't have any more of the specific
Okay.
facts of the resident situation that led to the tag. But basically the background here is that we have the emergency relocation is a subset, or it's in the same part of the statute as facility initiated transfers or discharges, or terminations is what they call discharges under the assisted living statute. So we have used emergency relocation pretty sparingly since the law went into effect. I'd say probably less than a dozen times, and really only in situations where there was some kind of urgent medical need or behavioral risk. Honestly, a lot of times it had to do with undiagnosed or uncontrollable behavioral or mental health type issues that resulted in some kind of admission on the resident's part, where basically the facility was seeking to temporarily remove the resident from the facility until the issue could be addressed or there was no longer the risk. So that's what we had interpreted that part of the statute as before, and what we'd use the notice for. And there's a template notice that we've developed and worked with individual communities when we were doing that. If the person is gone after for more than 4 days, the notice has to go to the ombudsman as well. It's not a termination or a discharge of that person's assisted living agreement, although if it turns into one, you have to initiate the whole discharge process. But it wasn't something we had ever used all that often. The rationale for the tag, as I understand, is that MDH's position now, and this has been confirmed by Leading Age, is that anytime the facility is doing anything to initiate a resident's temporary removal from the community, to include calling 911 that ends up in a hospitalization, that is a quote unquote emergency relocation in MDH's mind, and we need to issue this notice. We tried to push back a little bit and have Leading Age push back on MDH in their regular meeting with them, that, you know, the facility isn't seeking to remove or keep anyone away in these kind of scenarios where, you know, if we see someone fall or find someone on the floor and we call 911, that's not us trying to remove them or relocate them from the facility. And we hope and, you know, fully expect, if they're well enough, that they come back and they come home. But it sounds like at this point in time, MDH, you know, for lack of a better term, isn't having it. So I think we're going to have to be issuing these notices a lot more frequently, at least in the interim. Whether or not we appeal this specific tag, and have any success with that, and if that changes anything, I guess that's TBD. But given how infrequently we were using it before, I think it makes sense for me to provide the template notice, which is really just a one-page kind of fill in the blank with the statutorily required information on it, to everyone on this call, leadership, just so you have it handy. Because oftentimes, I mean, if someone is, again, it's a 911 scenario and someone's heading out, amongst the various things we have to do, I don't necessarily think this is, you know, call Ben or call Penny and get the notice isn't necessarily going to be front of mind. So I think that makes sense to just kind of have that in everyone's hopper. To the question about if it's anyone other than community staff initiating the call or the transfer, again, I guess we didn't put that specific hypothetical to MDH, but I think the logical conclusion is, if it's not the facility, if it's not the community taking the action, then it's not a community initiated relocation. So we don't have to issue the notice in that case. So if it's a family member, resident themselves, you know, they go out for some other, you know, routine appointment and end up staying or end up getting admitted somewhere, as long as we're not the ones kicking it off, initiating it, so to speak, I think we're safe based on this most recent guidance. But again, I think the bottom line is we're going to have to end up issuing a lot more of these notices in the interim. And I think the additional feedback at the kind of the exit conference was surveyors are kind of champing at the bit to start issuing these a lot more frequently, because they think everyone statewide is just ignoring this requirement as interpreted by them. So kind of like with the bed rail, side rail tag, where they had kind of signaled that they want to basically hit everyone with this if they can. I'd anticipate that they're going to be looking under a lot of rocks for these kind of notices on future surveys.
So I know one of the questions today was, should we go back and notify the ombudsman for everyone who's been in the hospital the last 3 months that we either called 911 for, or, you know, we sent them somewhere. And I do know Leading Age did, or Bobby Goodry said probably not, just like start going forward, or anybody currently in the hospital. start catching up and just getting those sent. And then we have a question that says, so anytime a resident is sent to the hospital in an emergent manner and they do not return within 4 days, notify the ombudsman and give notice of discharge and rent stops? Or do we keep the apartment open, or do we not keep the apartment open? I think we're confusing two things. We're not saying we're relocating them, and we're not saying we're discharging them. They just really want us to know that they're gone for 4 days. Is that what you're also agreeing to, Ben?
Right, I guess the notice is notice of, again, the statute calls it a quote unquote emergency relocation. That's just the term of art that they use. So it's not notice of discharge. We're not stopping rent. We still keep the apartment open because the expectation's temporary relocation, the person returns. If based on, you know, whatever they were hospitalized for, you know, whatever condition ends up turning into, time goes by and we now know they're not going to return, then we may be in a situation where we're issuing a discharge or termination notice. But that's a separate notice, separate process. The emergency relocation notice itself doesn't start the timeline on a discharge or anything like that. It's just a notice to the resident and ombudsman. So we're basically doing that. And I think there's, I will check, but I think there's some guidance on, there's like an email org box where they, to hold on second question, where they can be sent, but I'll confirm that offline and let everyone know.
Yeah,
And
and
this is Hodan again. I just wanna double check the whole notice thing. Are you guys providing us with the notice to give to the family that says that this person's discharged to the hospital, or are we creating one?
I have a template where you can basically fill in the blanks with the, I mean, I'll put blanks and kind of highlight where you guys at the community are going to fill in the resident unique information, but the statute says there are certain, you know, required pieces of information in there.
Okay.
So I'll clean that up and send that out to everyone here on this
Okay.
email this afternoon.
And
Because
then,
I think in the past, we did so few of them that there was time to basically consult, should we do an emergency relocation? We, you know, get the gang together, and I generally draft it up for people. But now that we're going to be issuing them a lot more, I think
Yeah.
everyone should just have one handy.
That's great. And then my other question in regards to that is, so we notify the ombudsman and we give the notice within that time frame. Like say the resident goes to the hospital because of an injury, you know, they have surgery, they end up in a rehab facility. The intent is always to come back during that time frame. So their apartment, it's still available to them. But sometime during their rehab stay, the resident passes away at the other facility. From giving a notice standpoint, the family then would give us a notice, letting go of their apartment, and their 30-day would begin the day they gave us the notice, because they intended on coming back the entire time.
Correct.
Does that change in any way with this
Nope.
new notice?
No, the notice itself doesn't do anything to terminate the agreement or the lease or anything like that, unless we, again, take the next step and start the termination discharge process. The notice is essentially just, you know, you're away for X amount of time, or a TBD, you know, indeterminate amount of time at this point. But it doesn't affect the lease itself unless we start the other process. So in
Okay,
your
that sounds good.
resident, you know, rehab and then dies scenario, the apartment would be kept open, and then the normal lease provisions on what happens if a resident passes away would kick in at that point.
Thank you.
And I can send out the cover letter also. But we did already put it in eSource under the compliance tools, disaster, and other plans under forms. And then I'll, Ben, add yours under there also, so it's together, but I can send that one out to everybody too today. But they are really, we're going to be seeing this. So if you have anyone out right now and it's been day 4, I would probably let the ombudsman know and make sure that we do the form to the family, the representative, and then the ombudsman. Is there any language about needing to update the ombudsman when the resident returns or just with the 4-day? It's not really a discharge, and I just want to say it's a relocation, a temporary relocation that we're talking about. The discharge process, a termination process is just different than this. This is just that emergency relocation that we initiated for medical reasons or behavioral reasons that we're discussing. Does that make sense, Ariel? But what about when they return? Do we have to let them know, Ben, when they're back in the facility? It
No,
doesn't
or at
say.
least there's nothing in the statute that says that. And again, this tag didn't get into it and didn't seem to be the subject of any of the MDH discussions. I would say no until we're told otherwise.
Mhm. Any other questions on that? And I can send you guys this, my sheet here so that you can review this too, so you have where the forms are kept. I did want to note, they had it on the MDH discussion, the leading age call or the MDH call today too with leading age, and Bobby Goodry just kept saying, you know, we're just waiting for a lot of clarifications on details. So just keep watching those leading age newsletters. I hope everyone signed up to get the newsletters, but I'll start forwarding them. I just think it's important to watch those and keep updated. So, and we'll try and do that every 2 weeks on this call also, if there's anything relevant. But all in all, it was a good survey. I don't know if Jane is able to talk yet or not.
I'm hanging out with Carlin.
Oh, hi, Jane.
Hi.
Hi, do you want to say anything about your survey?
Well, and you know, I've not seen from the environmental person, I've not seen anything. I don't know how I get that. Do you know by chance?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, because I noticed you had something about a ceiling tile. I don't know anything about that. So I feel like I assume they're gonna send me the details of that environmental.
Oh, I got that from Mary Glatt this morning off her email.
Okay.
So, or Penny's notes.
So what it really was, if I am understanding it, was not a ceiling tile. It was a part of a firewall in between our kitchen and our wellness room. Apparently at construction, when they tried to put venting in for our dishwasher, they cut out part of the firewall. I've seen that. I've been here for 12 years or 11 years, and I've never even put a thought into it, but it's those little things that he was looking, or she, I don't know, was looking at. And when you see it, it's very obvious that they broke that firewall.
Okay, yeah, these are from Penny's notes and from Mary Glatt's
Okay.
email this morning. So we don't have.
So I don't know about
written-
ceiling tile.
Yeah, we don't have the written
Yeah.
final yet, so we're just waiting on that. But this is all preliminary items.
Right. Going back to the temporary relocation, we had found out we had met with our county public health folks, I think the end of May, and they had brought to our attention that was actually, the ombudsman came to that meeting also, that was needing to be done. Unfortunately, for this particular circumstance, that had already happened. The gentleman had gone to the hospital and then the nursing home. And so we were really not aware of what they were, but he was, the ombudsman was very clear about what he anticipated would happen. And I had the same question about, do they need to know when they return? But what I understood from the meeting that we had is that the ombudsman, somebody from there would be contacting us if there were any concerns, Otherwise, I think it was a good survey. I mean, we definitely knew some things. Carlin was 7 days into her new position as Director of Nursing. I was in Arizona for 2 of the 3 days that took place. So I was just trying to put fires out from afar. But I think they did a great job, and we appreciate the support from our corporate folks too.
Yeah, I thought you guys did a really good job. So nothing we can't fix, right?
Right,
Jane?
exactly.
Right. And no immediate take, so it was just all
Right.
things to get in there and kind of correct, which we've done
That's
a
right.
lot of it already.
Yeah, yep, yep, that is exactly right. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else have anything else you want to go through here and need to go back over? I know the emergency relocation is a lot. It's really a big change, I think, for us, just to get that in our everyday wheelhouse.
I have a question. If you transfer to the skilled center that's within your community from assisted living to the skilled side, is that considered having to put something in?
Is that a planned move, or is that an emergency move? That's the difference I think we're talking about.
Okay,
So if I'm moving someone for behavioral reasons and I can't manage them and I'm going to put them over in the TCU for whatever reason, then I believe I have to give the 4-day notice. If I am discharging somebody to the skilled, that's a discharge that I would follow the termination process.
so if we're moving somebody for a physical reason over to the skilled side, but they plan on returning, that's not a discharge. That's just a relocation, but it's not, does it fall under this emergency relocation thing? They just need some extra care, so they went over there for, if, let's say it's an infection of some sort, and then they come back to us.
So those kind of issues are still being talked about with leading age and MDH. I would err on the side of probably letting them know right now, because I don't know how, if they would view that emergency. I'm not sure that's just like a normal discharge. I think that's would fall under more the emergency relocation.
Okay,
Yeah, I agree. Given how broadly they claim to be interpreting it, I
Right,
go on the side of caution and issue the notice.
right. And I think if all else fails, it's better just to issue it and be wrong right now because of the tags. So, you know, until we get more clarification and some details, you can always email me, Ben or Penny, and we'll try to help you with the decisions if you're not sure. But I would probably send one for that reason. Anything that's temporary that they have to move out of the building would probably be considered an emergency relocation. On our behalf, you know, it's always staff driven. So it's not like they went on vacation. We would not have to tell them.
Linda, it's Emily from Duluth. Where's that notice located? You said eSource?
Ben is going to do a template today. I have the cover letter here, but I will send that out also. And then I'll send this out so you'll have where we'll house the originals.
Okay, perfect. Does that need a signature when we send or no?
The template, I don't know, because Ben's creating that.
We always have had it, kind of like a discharge notice, you know, LALD or, you know, LALD of record or housing director manager has signed.
Can the ALRN, DON sign that if the housing is not present?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Linda, this is Jane. I just wanted to go back to, because we had that one employee that was still under, for whatever reason, the nursing home when she was hired. I forget what you call it now. So for those people that have longtime employees that perhaps came from the nursing home and transitioned to AL, that is how that happened. As far as that background study. So she had a background study, but it was under the facility ID of the nursing home
Oh,
when she was hired, 10 years ago or whatever. The same would have been for me and other people that have been here that have some longevity. So I would never have known to check that, but that would be something for your HR people, maybe, I guess. I don't know who.
well, there's a funny question for Ben, for legal. If we do a background study and they're employed by Benedictine, does it matter if it's AL or skilled? Because now I'm thinking about, what about the staff that float back and forth? We don't do background studies in both the AL and the skilled.
As
So-
long as they're cleared for direct contact through Net Study, they would be able to, but you would want a copy of that handy. Like, you wouldn't just want it at their, normal, facility of residence, so to speak. If they're floating, you'd want one on hand for every place that they're actually working.
So I bet she didn't do Net Study. That's the fingerprints. Is that right?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's the actual
that
clearance
was
from DHS.
before. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's something we should just look at, going back on some of our employees that move.
Yeah, I know that we've been having people go and do that on our campus because they were hired before that was a requirement. But yeah, that's what actually happened. I
Okay,
would never have thought of that, never thought to check on that, so.
no. No, every time we have a survey, I do feel like we're learning more and more and kind of getting processes set up. So,
Yes.
your first ones that are getting all the surveys are really the guinea pigs for the rest of their communities, but we have learned a lot in the 4 we've had. So, hopefully it'll keep getting less tags as we move forward, but then they'll just, focus on something new that we didn't focus on. So we do our best and keep learning. Is there anything else that anyone wants to share, or otherwise I will give you back 15 minutes of your time. I will go ahead and get this form out today. And then you'll see Ben's added in sometime this weekend. I'll put it in eSource for him under this area. So remember, there'll be more clarifications coming, and thank you for your time today, everyone. We'll see you next week. Thanks, Ben.